We are going to watch the boss, T. Ross, number 4 on the Star City Games Player of the Year leaderboard. Against Kyle Boggemes, a player with a Pro Tour top 8 and a lot of accomplishments to his name. The boss going to start things off with an Expedition Envoy as round number 4 is underway here from Columbus. For Boggemes, it's a very important 2-drop to have there in Duskwatch Recruiter. Realistically, it's just important to get to the board early here for Kyle.
No, he's really in the market for 3 toughness. That's an important flashpoint here. Requires Ross to have some sort of pump effect. So Lamphold, Pacifist, Sylvan Advocate, those are the premier 2s in this matchup.
Tom's going to trade the Expedition Envoy off with the Duskwatch Recruiter. And then he follows up with a Kithian and a 3-of an Inspector along with a Clue token. So for Kyle, Yavimaya Coast. And now here's a Reflector Mage. Kithian is going to get out of here. And you mentioned 3 toughness. It's here right now.
Slows the game down a little bit. Looks like Ross has a very land-heavy hand right now.
Tom will play a Plains. There's another copy of 3-of an Inspector. That's a Clue. This is a Thalia's Lieutenant. So the Inspectors are now 2 3s. And now going to pass the turn back over to Boggemes. See what comes next here for Kyle.
This matchup all about sizing on the ground. Can Ross get a creature large enough to be able to attack? And then failing that, can Ross find something like Griffspoon, get a source of evasion?
Looks like Kyle's going to take a damage, perhaps another Reflector Mage on the way. Yep. There goes 3-of an Inspector. There's an Evolving Wild. Simply pass the turn back over to the boss. So we go over to T. Ross. He will draw a card. It's a copy of Hanweir Militia Captain. A Plains. This is the Militia Captain. That is a Kithian. Now Thalia's Lieutenant's a little bit larger, but Tom can't make any good attacks. So Boggemes is going to sacrifice that Evolving Wild, search himself up a Plains, and now he's in 4-mana territory, which means we might be working our way towards our first Collected Company of the match.
Ross there not willing to trade off the Thalia's Lieutenant with one of the Reflector Mages, has big plans there. Thalia's Lieutenant, the best card in the matchup in terms of getting a threat sized large enough to be able to attack profitably into the Band Company side of the table.
Boggemes is going to draw a card here. We will see what comes next for him. Just play a Lumbering Falls and simply pass the turn back. We know how this works from the Bant Company side. 4 mana available means attacking is going to be pretty tough for Tom. Now, the Militia Captain is going to transform, and we will take a look at the backside of this here in just a moment. It is the Westville Cult Leader. Now, its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures that you control, so it's a 4/4 right now. At the beginning of your end step, you get to make a 1/1 white and black human cleric. So we can start churning out some more creatures. Now, here's a 3-of an Inspector, and Kyle is going to play Collected Company. That's a Spell Queller, and this is a Reflector Mage.
Yep.
So, 3-of an Inspector has been quelled. Now, Tom does get the opportunity to recast the Hanweir Militia Captain because when it was bounced, it was the Westville Cult Leader.
Yeah,
so
looks for name.
That's actually kind of nice. Yeah,
yep.
It actually looks for name. Boggemes is going to survey the battlefield here. One thing that's nice is that he does have a flyer out there, so Spell Queller can start attacking, but this looks very reminiscent to what we saw a little bit earlier when we watched Corey Baumeister play against Lucas Kiefer, where flying is king now.
Yes. The ground is pretty comfortably locked up, although Ross can still has the hope of getting Thalia's Lieutenant large enough to attack and at least trade off with 2 threats.
Mm-hmm. There's the Westville Cult Leader. Transformation complete there for the boss. There's Anointer Champions, a card that we know Tom likes quite a bit, especially in a matchup like this where it's so creature-oriented and stats-oriented.
Yep, you have a lot of 2-power threats, and you're banging into a lot of 3 toughness blockers, so Anointer Champions is excellent. Also combos very nicely with Always Watching.
Tom will sacrifice a Clue. Now he'll play a land. He does have Always Watching in hand. But he also maybe wants to leave that 3 mana available for Kithian activation.
To say nothing of the implications of what could Kyle have in hand. Collected Company. And what's that range? Archangel Avacyn's a possibility. 1 copy in Kyle's main deck.
Mm-hmm. Always Watching going to be played here. Looks like we'll have a Collected Company. Top 6 here for Boggemes. Just a Bounding Crassus. Not the end of the world. Any good attacks to be had here for Tom. Now remember, the Westvale Cult Leader counts for how many creatures on the battlefield. You hadn't always watching. It's a 6/6 right now.
That to me is an important flashpoint for when Ross can start attacking with some of his size threats, is if they trade with at least 2 things on Kyle's side. You don't want to send in a big thing where your big thing dies and you only trade off with one of their creatures.
Got to get at least 2.
Right. So with a board full of 3 toughness threats, once Ross has something at 6 power, then you have the conversation about whether or not it's worth an attack. But with Westvale Cult Leader especially, there is some incentive to just sort of like hang back and wait, because it will grow over time, especially now with Anointer of Champions. You might get a more profitable attack the following turn.
Here comes the Lieutenant. It looks like. Actually, okay, so Crassus taps down the Lieutenant.
Yep.
Westvale Cult Leader makes a 1/1. Remember, Human Cleric, it's a human, so it triggers the Lieutenant, so the Lieutenant actually grows a little bit larger. It's a 6/6. Let's actually make it a 7/7 because of Always Watching. Kyle going to come across here for 2 in the air. Ross going to fall down to 16. Now all Boggemes can do is pass the turn back. Now you're always wary when you play against a deck like Bad Company because they pass the turn back with all that mana available, and you say, okay, you probably have something. I don't actually think you're out of gas. Tom Gossipmonger, and now Thalia's Lieutenant. You're going to get a trigger. It's going to give a lot of counters out here. Tom going to have to get some more dice as these creatures are going to grow like crazy.
We've already been running up against this problem earlier.
Yeah.
Not enough dice.
Could be time for some beatdowns here in just a moment. See how the boss wants to serve it up if he wants to at all. You mentioned many times here that it's important with whatever attacks he does make, he's got to get at least 2 creatures off the battlefield. But now we're getting in the spot where blocking is getting really tough for Kyle. Now it's
or not.
It's getting a little. It's getting a little easier now. There's an Archangel Avacyn.
Blocking's easy for this turn, at least.
Yes, for sure. See how much he can clean up. You mentioned that card, just a 1-of in Kyle's deck.
Though this isn't. This is bad for Ross insofar as he's not going to do a whole lot in combat, and now Boggemes has a lot going on in the air. But Ross's creatures are so large that it's not like Boggemes can make huge inroads onto the board this turn. You can't touch the Kytheon because there's the 3 mana left to make that indestructible.
I guess it's just maybe a lot of blocking just to prevent any damage from coming through, but how much can he actually get off the battlefield?
It's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
And that's the saving grace here for Tom, is he's not going to lose a whole bunch.
The bad news for Tom, as you did mention, is that Kyle's doing pretty well in the air now.
Yes. Now the clock has gone up from 2 points in the air to now 6. So Ross has a lot less time to find a Griff's Boon or some other way to break through.
Well, Tom will lose the Thraben Inspector. Kytheon will transform into Gideon. So we'll take a look at Gideon Battleforge for those of you who may not be familiar. A lot going on with that card, especially in this deck. You see Tom even taking a look at it, and he's won 2 opens with this card in his deck. Now, starts on 3, you +2, and up to 1 target creature an opponent controls attacks Gideon. So that's worth noting here. Now you can do +1, you can untap until your next turn. Target creature gains indestructible, you untap that creature. So, a lot going on here. Another token made there from the Westvale Cult Leader, which means the Thalia's Lieutenants will grow as we head back Boggemes' way. Kyle's drawn his card for the turn. You see 6 mana available there. Color's not an issue. Outside of, I guess, a little bit of pain from the Yavimaya Coast.
And this is fairly rough here, as if Boggemes has to attack with the Bounding Crassus, it's easy, trivial for Tom to block that. That will kill the Bounding Crassus, and then suddenly there's an Archangel Avacyn trigger involved. And Boggemes is the board full of 3 toughness threats. Ross keeps a lot more of his side.
So, in a weird roundabout way, Tom would love for that Avacyn to flip.
Yep. And let's say Boggemes attacks with the Flyers. That gets Tom down to 10 this turn. Avacyn triggers. Now Tom's at 7. And now Avacyn's at 6/5. That means Ross has 2 turns worth of attacking if everything breaks the right way. And I don't know if Boggemes can hold out for 2 turns if he loses his whole board, and assuming that his hand doesn't have a whole lot going on.
And you know, of course, Tom can always draw ways to interact with that Avacyn Declaration in Stone.
Yep.
Chris Boone to block, stuff like that. One thing about this particular matchup in this format, you got to be really good at kind of surveying the board and the best way to attack. You know, so you see Bounding Crisis has to attack Gideon. Kyle taking a look, wants to make sure he knows exactly what that Planeswalker does do. Can't forget that Gideon's 0 ability just turns into a 4/4 that can give the beatdowns. So it looks like Archangel Avacyn's going to go somewhere. We'll figure out where these creatures are going. We know that Bounding Crisis is going to Gideon. And Spellquiller is also feeling it in the red zone. Bounding Crisis is going to predictably die. And it looks like the Flyers were at Tom. Gideon fell to 3, so confirm when the Spellquiller went, please.
Also, Gideon should be at 2.
Well, it should, we need to confirm where it should be.
Where should Gideon be? It's at 3, it's at 5.
I'm trying to figure out exactly what loyalty Gideon should have right now.
And how the attacks got split and so forth.
Correct.
Spellquiller.
Okay, so Spellquiller went to Gideon. Got it. So now here's a transformation. Avacyn's going to finish off Gideon. We had a feeling that was going to happen, but take a look at Tom's board. Lost nothing? Very little to the Avacyn transformation? Yeah, very little. Still has a pretty good board intact.
And I believe he gets an always watching back in his hand from the Spellqueller dying as well.
Players in the two-headed giant sealed event. Your seating
Excuse me, a Thraben Inspector.
posted on yellow paper.
So that enters the battlefield, and he drew a Thalia's Lieutenant.
Two-headed giant sealed.
This battlefield certainly do get complicated. He's going to draw a card, pick up the Plains. There's Lieutenant. So now his largest Lieutenant is a 13/13. Cult Leader's an 8/8.
Yeah, I think Avacyn might be on chump blocking
Yeah,
detail.
I think you might be right. Unless Kyle has some sort of instant speed spell here. Yeah.
Collecting Company or whatever, there are ways to change the equation, but if he's got nothing going on here, he's just blocking, just chump blocking with Avacyn against 2-mana creatures.
Well, he's reaching for mana. Ah, Lumbering Falls. Time for you to get to work.
Yep, this allows him to get one more hit, get another draw step, hope for the best.
Plains, pass. Kyle will draw. Curious to see if did Tom maybe forget the token from the Cult Leader on the end step. Not sure. Either way, he hasn't reached for it, so it looks like he did miss that trigger.
Modern challenge.
You see Tom's board. He's got that really large Thalia's Lieutenant, a smaller one. Westfield Cult Leader that does have some counters on it. And always watching a Incited Rabble that was transformed with Avacyn's Trigger on the stack, and then that Thraben Inspector that came back from the Spellqueller. For Kyle Boggemes, it's a lot more simple. He's got some lands, and he has a flipped Avacyn. That's it.
You can see Ross's familiarity with the deck, too. He had no hesitation there about taking that Kytheon into Gideon route to get the Archangel Avacyn to flip over.
He's been here before.
Yep.
Kyle's surveying the board here. You see the light totals. It's 9-9. The game is very close. And Kyle's just trying to figure out, is there a way I can actually cross the finish line here? And I'm not sure there is. Keep in mind, he's also cast a lot of Reflector Mages so far now. He does have a Dromoka's Command in hand, and that's working its way into the equation. What can that do to help me?
And the ideal scenario is you get to attack with Avacyn, find a way to survive the turn, and then attack again. I don't know if there's a route. Once he's put into the position where he has to just chump block with Avacyn, there's no getting back in.
Well, he's coming across here for 6. That's a Tireless Tracker. That's a land. It means a clue is here. Maybe hoping for a mistake.
Raw should be at 3, not 6. No, that's wrong. The 3 damage went to the end. Yeah.
So you see Ross just fall down to 6 here. Now here's Jamoka's command. Gonna take down Incited Rabble.
But I still don't
Always
think.
watching down too.
I think Raw still has this covered.
I believe so. Well, Griffspoon probably makes it easy.
Okay.
Yeah. My creature is enormous and flies, and that's going to do it. Tom Ross going to win game number 1 here over Kyle Boggemes. White-Red Humans up a game over Bant Company, and we talked about this, like I said, when we watched this a little bit earlier. It was Bant Humans from Corey Baumeister, not Bant Company, but very similar decks against Lucas Kiefer playing Humans. Flying, 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 man.
Yes.
That's what it's about here in this matchup, that's for sure. Now, we take a look at the sideboards. We'll start with Kyle B. He's got an Ochitai's Command, a Declaration Stone, 3 Negate, 2 Landhold Pacifist, a Tireless Tracker, 2 Summary Dismissal, a Thalia, 3 Aerial Volley, and then a Void Grafter.
So I think you want the 1 copy of Thalia, the 1 copy of Declaration of Stone, and the 2 copies of Lamphold Pacifist, just removal spells and creatures that are sized the right way to brawl. I also don't mind the Void Grafter here. It's another creature that's well sized for blocking detail, and also can fizzle the removal spells that Ross may be bringing in or already have in his main deck.
On the other side of things here for the boss, it's a sideboard we've seen before in 4 Needle Spires and 4 Reckless Bushwhacker. He's got a Griffspoon, a Silk Wrap, 2 Stasis Snare, 2 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, and then a copy of Repeal the Abominable. So we've seen that a little bit here this weekend.
I'm curious what are Ross's thoughts on Reckless Bushwhacker in this matchup. It doesn't strike me as being great because the board gets so cluttered and Ross's deck gets outsized in such a way that even Reckless Bushwhacker may not lead to profitable trades. I definitely want the additional copy of Griff's Boon, and past that, if he wants Reckless Bushwhacker, the Needle Spires will likely come in as well. My instinct is that I would not bring it in if I was in Ross's spot, but we'll have to see.
Well, those are the options there for both of these players. The boss is currently up a game with his White-Red Humans deck, as he has been in the last couple of standard tournaments he's played with this deck. He has been a machine destroying people with humans over the past month or so. We'll see if Boggemes can tie things up. But while these players do sideboard and get ready for game number 2, we're talking about the SCG newsletter. It's your source for Magic the Gathering news. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, a lot of information about the going on the Star City Games with the latest information about the SCG Tour with a selected SCG Tour match of the week, exclusive deck lists and advice from many of your favorite columnists, and an exclusive cardboard crack comic. Best of all, signing up is free over at go.starcitygames.com/newsletter.
Well, we've talked about the boss some, and it doesn't hurt to talk about him a little bit more. He's a winner through and through here on the SCG Tour. Looking to get back to the Players' Championship as a 32-year-old who currently resides in Roanoke, Virginia. He's got 13 open top 8s, 4 wins, 2 of them very recently with this White-Red Humans deck. 3 invitational top 8s with 2 wins as well. Self-proclaimed oh, hold on. These are new. Here we go. Self-proclaimed best GoldenEye 64 player, has beaten people using only his feet.
Okay, that's quite the claim. We played a lot of GoldenEye in my day.
Me too.
Me, Eugene Harvey, Adam Horvath, some other gamers. We played a lot. What were your house rules?
Ooh, so many house rules. I like it varied, I guess. You know, like no golden gun. Did you play the remote mine rule?
So our house rules were the only mode was man with a golden gun, 1-shot kills, no matter what your weapon was.
Okay.
And you were allowed to play with Odd Job, the tiny character that was busted, but you were only allowed to chop. You couldn't use a gun, but you could run around chopping people.
Like, we briefly had a thing, so when you figured out that you could throw remote mines and blow them up in the air, we briefly had a rule where, like, you just weren't allowed to do that because it just made the game no fun. But then we just kind of got rid of that rule because it was pretty fine.
Sure.
So I don't remember all the house rules. Game was amazing, though. But beating people with your feet is – I don't even know what to say to that. Along with Michael Majors, put 8% of all tournament winnings towards buying an NBA Jam arcade machine.
Well, 8% of my earnings was what Activision suggested I put towards my 401k.
Okay.
So it's very similar.
Oh, okay, sure.
So it's the retirement fund.
Got it. And he still used the parkour and can still do backflips. So I'm very glad to see that Michael Majors and Tom Ross are very passionate about their NBA Jam gameplay.
How do you get enough playtesting in with your feet to be able to beat people with your feet?
I'm not sure.
Because you can't just do that naturally. That's something you would have to work towards, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I think, well, I guess it's something that you could practice by yourself. So there are speedrunners out there who do these, they do things blindfolded, stuff like that. So you're definitely spending a lot of time doing this. I'm going to have to inquire about this with Tom. Now, I also want you to take a good look at Tom right now because he's doing something new here, employing a facial hair strategy.
Yes.
He's got a nice little beard going on, a mustache as well. We typically see Tom a clean-shaven mage. And I got to say, it looks like kind of more of a detective mustache.
Yeah, it's a boss stash.
Yeah, solving a crime with his humans.
Right, Thraben Inspector. Mm-hmm. This is the Tom Ross Invitational card.
That's correct. So I'm liking the facial hair get-up from the boss. I'm a fan.
All he needs is one of those bubble pipes,
Bubble pipe and a fedora.
And
a fedora. And he would be fully in costume as the Thraben Inspector.
Solving the mystery of his opponent's missing life total.
Yeah.
Where'd it all go?
Tom,
Nobody knows.
Tom is going to take
Nobody knows.
a mulligan. See if he can find a hand that he likes. For Kyle, he's happy, or at least as happy as he can be. Kyle Boggemes is no slouch either. I know we don't see him a ton on the SCG Tour, but when we do, there's a lot of winning involved.
Yes. And I like Kyle quite a bit. He's very humble Magic player,
Yep.
very self-aware. For someone as accomplished as he is, there's no arrogance in the conversation.
Played a lot of Pro Tours, has played a lot of high-level Magic. Runner-up at Pro Tour San Diego many moons ago.
Loves a Curd Ape.
Yes, he does.
Loves a Curd Ape.
Which I know you can respect that.
Yeah.
Dragon Hunter to start there for Tom. For Kyle, it's a Duskwatch Recruiter. Plains the draw there for the boss. Here's an attack. Will there be a trade? There will not be. You saw Kyle make this exchange last time, not willing to make it this time. Couple of 1-drops here for Detective Ross. Maybe just a 2-drop.
Interesting to see Boggemes not trade that time. Maybe indicates that he doesn't have anything to do on turn 3 and he's planning on activating and then flipping. That line of play has gotten a little bit worse now with the Neuter of Champions.
Oh, that's exactly what he's going to do. Though he is not going to activate.
Telling.
He's just going to flip, yeah. Smells like a Jamoka's command or some sort of counter spell, who knows. Some sort of instant speed interaction. Beatdowns. There's a block. There's an activation. All right. Just a flat trade.
So perhaps Spell Queller.
Yeah, that's what it seems like now. And I don't think Tom's board is good enough to not add something to it.
Yep. Also, assuming that he's got a bunch of 2-power threats, he can still, with the Neuter of Champions, trade into the Spell Queller next turn, so it's not like it locks him out.
There's a Dragon Hunter. Here's a Kithian. Kithian's going to be Spell Quellered. Yep. Okay. Boggemes will draw. There's a Forest. Here's an attack for 2. I mean, Spell Queller does not make it as a good blocker right now at all. So.
No, and too valuable, especially with the Kithian down underneath it. Just has to attack.
Beatdowns, both Dragon Hunters. Kyle reaching immediately. It's 4 mana for Eclectic Company. Tom's hoping things don't go too poorly here for him. Top 6. Does Kyle find 2 to take with him? There's at least a bound increases there. What comes next? He's not going to take the bound increase. He's actually going to take Pacifist and Advocate.
And this is just an issue of sizing here. This means that, assuming all Ross can do is activate a Neuter of Champions, that Ross loses both of his threats and Boggemes only loses one of his blockers. Do they ever not have Collected Company?
No, no, they always have it, and they never miss.
Yeah. I think now Wizards editor Tim Ayton used to refer to it as "never not have it" guy.
Yeah, yes.
just out there, never not having it.
Neither the White Orchid ×2. Tom has to take one to cast the second one, but he's empty-handed, and Kyle is in the driver's seat right now. And Kyle's even got a flyer too. Pretty important in this spot. 2 mana. Okay, Decoration in Stone, gonna clean those up. Lumbering Falls there for the Bog. See how he wants to attack in this spot. Looks like he's gonna come in with both. Ross is gonna fall down to 13. Now it looks like Detective Tom might solve a clue. Yeah.
The mystery of all of his missing creatures.
Indeed. He will draw a card. Now there's neither the White Orchid. He will get to search. There's a Plains.
Solving the double homicide of combat last turn.
We'll head back Kyle's way. He'll play a Plains. See how he wants to attack in this spot. He'll attack with both creatures. Remember, Sylvan Advocate is a 4/5 now. It's no longer a 2/3. 3 mana. Thalia. Anoint your champions to draw there for the boss. New Thalia is very powerful. Keep in mind, a legendary creature, but it is a 3 mana 3/2 with first strike. And creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped.
A slightly awkward fit in this deck because this is the kind of card that makes you want to collect a company on your main phase, in contrast to Spell Queller that you want to be collecting company in response to things. But this card's probably powerful enough where it just fits the bill of find every good 3 mana creature and go to work.
The Crassus is going to come down. It's going to tap something. And Boggemes will quickly untap. Take a draw here, and he might be thinking firing up Lumbering Falls to try to cross the finish line. We'll see.
Yeah,
Just trying to think if anything can go wrong.
Ross would need to have a trick.
Here comes everybody. No need to fire up the Lumbering Falls. You mentioned the Ross would have to need a trick because he only has 1 blocker. So this is a lethal attack at this stage. That's for sure. See if there's anything that Tom can do to stay alive 1 more turn. As he looks at the card in his hand, it's a Stasis Snare. Oh, Stasis Snare can take care of the Spell Queller. And Dromoka's Command says, I don't really care about that. So counter fight and good night, Tom Ross. Kyle Boggemes is going to win game number 2 here over Tom Ross. Bant Company, White Red Humans, getting ready here for game number 3. Pretty impressive draw there from Kyle.
Very impressive draw, and again, this is the second time we've seen this match or something very close to it so far today, and it's all sizing on the battlefield where Bant Company has an edge, and once the game gets like that, then it's can the Humans deck put together enough evasion or enough pump effects to break through. Ross was able to do that game 1, unable to do so game 2. A lot of that had to just do with the speed of Boggemes' draw.
Now, one of the things that's difficult here for Tom in this particular matchup is just the splash that he is employing here with Battlefield Forge, Needle Spires, and Reckless Bushwhacker. Just doesn't really play a role here.
I don't think so. I think it's more for control matchups where you need that little bit of extra burst. But Bant Company is so good at playing to the battlefield, so good at just getting a bunch of stuff in play, that I think the save a bunch of stuff in my hand and burst you down in 1 shot with Reckless Bushwhacker is not really a line of play that Ross can take in this matchup.
Well, both players going back to the drawing board here a little bit, so maybe they're going to change things up as their roles have changed. Tom is on the play for game number 3, and Kyle is on the draw. We will find out soon enough. But as I do get ready for game number 3, let's talk about that wonderful Max MVD Clue token. He is our Season 1 Invitational Champion after all, and as a result, he won $10,000. He's qualified for our Players' Championship. He got a real big trophy, but he also got this bad boy. He is our Clue token here on the SCG Tour, and there are a couple different ways to go about getting it.
Anyone who participates in any of our 2-day a $20,000 opens or any of our classics that we run on Sunday will get this token when they register. If you can't make it out to one of our large events, any order from StarCityGames.com, $5 or greater, will be shipped with this token. Remember that we make a new one of these tokens every single time there's an invitational. New Jersey's right around the corner, so you're running out of time to get your hands on this Max Maviti token. So make it out to one of our large events or place an order from the website, $5 or greater, as soon as you can.
A lot of people, big fan of the Tom Ross mustache at home. I say keep it. Actually, okay, true or false? Now, I wish we had a mock-up here right now. I wish Ray Dill, a wonderful graphic designer who I work next to every day at Star City Games, he might be at home listening. Who knows? Could you imagine Tom Ross? That thing grows out, little handlebar, the little loops at the end.
Sure.
I think he'd look great with that.
Yep. He's got the right Bayou twang to his voice.
Exactly.
It'd be perfect,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. He's got the little twirls at the end of it, kind of strokes those while he's beating the heck out of his
Oh.
opponent.
True Detective, Season 1.
Exactly.
Louisiana Detectives.
Yep. Yep.
It all comes all back
It
around.
really does. Full circle.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Solving crimes in the swamp. Can't believe it took me that long to get there. Wow.
Tom Ross is now
Wow.
the true detective.
Yep.
I said, just let that. If we could get a mock-up, some sort of graphic at home with Tom with a little handlebar mustache while he's holding both trophies,
Yeah.
it'd be beautiful. It'd be a beautiful thing. Both these
Like
players
the-
are going to take a look at their
Like the
opening.
older, rundown version of Matthew McConaughey in the show, you know?
Great work by McConaughey that season.
Great work.
Really good.
Stands out in stark contrast to his bizarre work with those Cadillac commercials.
Yeah, that's just you gotta keep cashing those checks.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Got this creepy sentimentality. I think I can't do the voice the right way, but you know what I'm going for.
I sure do.
He's much better in True Detective. Is my
You see Dragon Hunter come across for 2. Boggemes down to 18. Tom with one of these starts. 3 1-drops by turn 2. He's also got an Expedition Envoy and Anoint Your Champions. For Boggemes, he needs to have a play. He doesn't have a play, and this game might be over before it even begins. For Ross, he did draw a land for the turn, a copy of Battlefield Forge. Now, this is a little interesting. What could Kyle have here with just 2 mana? No creature, Dromoka's command doesn't do anything, so is he just that far behind?
yeah, maybe no. I don't know of any flash threat that this deck could conceivably play.
Yeah. There's a Grip Spoon. Here come Beatdowns. That's 6 damage.
I guess there's the new card target player sacrifices an attacker. The Escalate card.
Yeah, okay.
So you see him get in with the Anointer of Champions, just in case.
Yep.
All the angles.
Yep, covering them all. And now there's a Hanaware Militia Captain that's threatening to transform into the Westvale Cult Leader. Kyle, I would play a spell.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Well, now we have Bounding Crisis. We have potentially
Queller.
the Void Grafter in his sideboard if you brought that in.
All right.
But that's not stopping a whole lot of this.
Oh, Thalia's Lieutenant was the draw. I actually don't know if he actually wants to cast that right now or not because of Spell Queller. Ignore me. Tom's going to play his spells. Oh, that's going to resolve. Oh, boy. Here is Bounding Crisis to tap something down. I think it has to tap down the Cult Leader because it's the biggest creature.
By far.
Yeah. Pretty easy choice there. Tom's last card in hand is a Declaration in Stone. Here come the beatdowns. The Later Champion's going to hang back.
I don't know if you're on the draw in this matchup from the band company side if you can keep any hand that doesn't do something on the second turn.
Oh, I don't think you can. I think that you almost have to mulligan a hand that doesn't have Pacifist or Advocate or Recruit or something because there's just no coming back from this, in my opinion. It would involve a perfect Collected Company now. That's what it would take.
And even that's going to be problematic. The sizing on Ross's side of the table is very hard to answer. Anointer of Champions means that a lot of Boggemes' kind of second-tier things that he can collect a company and still can't block and eat things effectively. He's also at 7.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Boggemes just with a handful of Dromoka's commands, at least 2 in there, maybe a third copy.
Tom will untap. He'll draw now. And Declaration in Stone in hand. Always watching is the spell. All right. Kyle going to cast the Collected Company. It's a last-ditch effort here. I'm not sure if there's a perfect hit.
It's got to be Spell Queller Reflector Mage for I think for Boggemes to get out of this turn.
Okay.
Okay, well then there you go. He can bounce he can counter the Always Watching and bounce, I would imagine, the Cult Leader.
The Cult Leader, I think it has to be.
And that still doesn't really give him any forward traction. It just stops him from dying this turn.
Yeah. So Cult Leader back in the grip. I saw Ross last turn when he got to make that human with the Westville Cult Leader. He did miss the Thalia's Lieutenant trigger. Not the end of the world, but it was missed. Now here comes the Expedition Envoy that has a Grip Spoon on it. Anoint Your Champion's going to pump that up. And pass. Boggemes at 2. He's trying to fight. You said it had to be Spell Queller and Reflector Mage to make it out alive. He had him.
He can start casting Dramoka's commands this turn. I think he's only got a single white, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Also has a copy of Duskwash Recruiter in hand. So he's still. It looks like he's still in 2 spell per turn territory. Remember, Ross does have a Declaration in Stone in hand. Can't forget about that.
Boggemes is unaware of that, however. Three copies of Dramoka's command in Boggemes' hand right now, but still only on the single white mana.
There's the Recruiter. Kick it over. To Ross we go. He's drawing a card. Didn't get a great look at it.
I think it's a foil Thraben Inspector.
Nice.
I'm guessing from an F&M draft. One random foil.
Yep. Thought you said it's going to grow. Also get that clue. Deck and Stone. He wants the Spell Queller dead because he wants his Always Watching back.
He also wants to force the hand right now on Boggemes using Dramoka's command before combat happens and things can get a little messy.
Yep. Now what's tough here for Kyle, too, is that he would ideally like to say, okay, you can get your Always Watching and I will make you sacrifice it. That might play a role in things, but look at his life total. He's at 2. Mm-hmm. That's what makes this so tough.
Well, he also has to stop the Griff Spoon, too.
Uh-huh.
There's now 2 very problematic enchantments.
That's true. He's got to stop the Griff Spoon. That means he's got to be able to beat a flying creature.
This just might be a little too much.
We can't forget as well that if Always Watching is on the battlefield, it means Anointer of Champions is very happy to attack, in addition to its pump effect, as opposed to having to choose one or the other.
So then maybe you need a Dramoka's command down the Anointer of Champions before Ross even gets into combat, but then all the information's on the table. There's not even a mistake for Ross to make.
Mm-hmm. So now there goes the Spell Queller. Always Watching is in. And everything's going to attack that's eligible. Here's Kyle. Dramoka's command. Maybe the hope is that Tom Ross makes a mistake in this instance. But the fact that Anointer of Champions gets to attack is really big here. Yeah, and Kyle realized, I can't get out of this. I think maybe the realization he came to is the fact that if he makes him sacrifice an enchantment, Tom will just say, I'll sacrifice my Griff Spoon.
Or you can just sacrifice the Always Watching and say, my flyer's coming
Kill you.
across. Yeah, Kyle either has to shoot down the flyer first. There's just no way for him to measure it. Ross has everything covered.
And what you